All right, good morning. We will be learning about estimating square root today. Estimate square root. All right, so let's start with what we know. We know what is a square root. We started by saying if the area is 4, the sides are 2 times 2, which make the area 4, and therefore by definition we can also say this area 4 has side as square root 4. Square root 4 is 2. They are equivalent, right? If we were to put on a number line, we're going to write integers in the bottom and its corresponding square root version on the top. We're going to start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All right? Next, we're going to write its corresponding square root version just on top of it. So we know 1 times 1 give you 1, therefore 1 is equivalent to square root 1. 2 times 2 is 4, and therefore 2 is equivalent to square root 4. 3 times 3 is 9, therefore 3 is equivalent to square root 9. 4 times 4 is 16, is equivalent to square root 16. 5 times 5, 25, therefore 5 is equivalent to square root 25. Square root 36, 7 is square root 49, 8 is square root 64. Again, if you know your multiplication table by heart, this would be straightforward. 100, square root 11, 1, 21. All right. Now that we have figured out the equivalent of integers versus its square root twin, we can come up with this number line. Now, all these numbers inside this square root symbol are perfect squares. 49, for instance, we measure nicely 7 and 7 on each side if the area is 49. Now, there are numbers in between that wouldn't fit, that would not be a perfect square. Take, for instance, if we say I have a square that measures 5 as area, what is the measurement of its side? Its side would be square root 5, of course. Now, what is square root 5 as a number? Square root 5 as a number, if we want to compare, we're going to compare to the number on the top, because that has a square root number, so does the numbers on the top. Square root 5, naturally, it's going to fit somewhere here. If we're going to translate this square root 5 into integer, it's not going to be an integer. It's going to be a decimal number, of course, between 2 and 3, right? It's going to be 2 point something. Let's figure out the something. We know 5 is closer to 4 than 9, and therefore this decimal would be leaning towards 2. We can say it's 2.1. And if we don't know for sure, let's put a wavy sign on top of this equal. You can say 2.1, you can say 2.2. It doesn't really matter in this case, because we are approximating. Now, this symbol here has a name. The symbol is approximately equals 2. All right? Or in plain English, it's about. So 5, it's about 2.2. Okay? Another version of this is 2 wavy lines. You can also say 5 is 2 wave lines, 2.2. You can also do that as well. These 2 symbols are interchangeable. Let's take a look at other examples. If I have a square with the area of 72, the measurement on each side, it's going to be square root 72. I would like to translate that to a decimal version. So square root 72, let's try to find a home for it. Square root 72 looks like it's gonna fall in between 72, 72, higher, higher, higher. Oh, okay. So it's gonna be somewhere here between 8 and 9. So we can say square root 72 is, take the lower number, decimal something, okay? Between 8 and 9. Looks like 72 as a number is in between 64 and 81. We don't know which way it's gonna lean in towards to unless we find the number in between. Okay, so we need to take an average of these two numbers. 64, 81, add them together, divide by 2. Let's see what it comes up to. So 60 plus 80 would be 140, and we have 5 ones. 145 divided by 2 would be 72.5. So 72.5 square root of that is going to be equivalent of 8.5. All right. Now our number is 72. It's slightly less than 72.5, so it's gonna be right there, a little bit less than 8.5. We can call it 8.49, 48, something like that. Okay, that will make sense. Okay. Let's give it another example. How about 55? If this area is 55, its side will measure square root 55. Let's find out what square root 55 is, shall we? Square root 55, if we were to find a placement for it, find a home for it, 55, 55, oh, that's more than, that looks like it's gonna sit in between here. Sit in between there, square root 55. Okay, double check this. Does it work? Of course it does. So this would be in between 7 and 8. It's gonna be 7 point something. Now 55 looks like it's leaning towards where? Well, I'm gonna say it's leaning towards 7, but to know for sure, let's take an average of these two numbers. 49, 64 divided by 2. This gives us 113. So the average of which would be, if we were to take a long division, 113 divided by 2. 12 be 13 here. 6 times 12, 1 left. And 0.5 would give us the answer. The middle number would be 56.5. Okay, so this halfway, 7.5 would be equivalent of square root of 56.5. Okay, so square root 55 is gonna be less than that. Let's call it 7.4. Don't forget the approximately equal sign, because they are not absolute, these are merely estimates. There we go. One more example. If we need to rearrange this set of numbers, 7 square root of 46, 5.8, square root of 27, and 6.3. Okay, how do we go about doing this? Let's arrange them, put these numbers on the number line. Let's start with the decimals and integers. Right? smallest one being 5.8, 6.3, and 7 is on the right hand side. Then we can find home for the square root numbers. Square root numbers 46. Okay, let's go. 46, that's too much. It's gonna be in between 6 and 7. It's gonna fall in right here. 46 looks like it's gonna be towards 7, so 6 towards 7 looks like it's gonna fit there. Okay, that's square root of 46. Let's double check that. 46 is less than 7 for sure, less than 49, and it's leaning towards 7, so a little bit less than 7. Could be, I don't know, 7.8. Sorry, 6.8. There we go. So it could be square root 46. Somewhere there. Square root of 27 though, let's take a look. Square root of 27 looks like it's gonna fall in between there. Between 5 and 6, leaning towards to 5. Okay, so it looks like it's gonna be less than 5.8 for sure, because it's just a little bit greater than 5. So square root of 27. If we were to rewrite this nicely, it's gonna look like square root 27 followed by 5.8 followed by 6.3, square root 46, and 7. We're gonna put symbols in between, and it's gonna be, that would be a greater symbol, that would be a less than symbol, right? So the way to remember the symbols is see it as a fish, and it's open up to the larger number. These are hungry fishes. They want to have a big lunch, so they will pick the larger number, right? So it's gonna open up that way all the way through. That would be our answer. And that concludes our lesson for estimating square root. Again, if you have a square root, if you have a number that is the area, each side will be the square root of the same number. How do we estimate that as a decimal? Compared to this number line, set this up first, okay? Look on the top and find the range that it falls in between. 55, for instance, fall in between this range, and therefore, as a decimal, it's gonna fall in between this range. And then we find out which way it leans towards to. We approximate it. And that's the end of the story. Hope you find it easy peasy. Good luck.